What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. I'm in the building today. So, before I get to my initial thoughts, I want to give a shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves that got, crushed last night by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Congrats to the Thunder for reaching to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012. And I'll tell you what, man, that Oklahoma City Thunder team, they're going to be a serious problem, whoever comes out of the Eastern Conference. And most likely to be the Pacers. So, they're going to be a difficult, assignment for either one of those teams, for the Knicks or the Pacers. I'll get into my thoughts on the NBA Finals when it's finally set in stone. But I want to personally talk about the situation that's going on in Minnesota. So, right now, as we see it here, the Minnesota Timberwolves right now are facing a steep situation here. Because there are 3 guys on the roster that are going to be free agents this upcoming offseason. And those guys are Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, and Julius Randle. Now, the reason why the Timberwolves made the trade for Julius Randle for Karl-Anthony Towns was because the Timberwolves could not financially keep the core roster of last year's team together. They couldn't afford to keep Cat's contract in the books because then they would have been stuck under the luxury tax of the second tax apron. Because of the new rules of the CBA, it's making things a little bit more steep and difficult to keep some of your core pieces together on the team. So, what the Timberwolves are facing in this particular situation is, who should they keep in this situation? Now, here's where Randall's contract situation comes into key play here. Now, Julius Randle has a $30 million option deal in his contract. Now, he's set to become a free agent. Now, if he opts out of the $30 million player option deal, he becomes an unrestricted free agent, and he can pretty much be free to sign whatever team that he chooses to, basically sign any contract to his market value. But if he decides to opt in, he would be paid $30 million for next season. Now, the issue is, could you be able to keep all 3 of those players on your roster for next year? I don't think they'll be able to. And I think that the Timberwolves management is going to have to decide, who should we keep in this situation? Should we let Randle walk as a free agent? Or should he opt into a player option deal and then basically put him in the trading market to try to get some assets out of it? Now, that's going to be a very steep question. Now, they're not in serious financial hell, unlike the Milwaukee Bucks or the Phoenix Suns that are just pretty much ruined their entire futures. They have some leeway into try to figure things out. Now, I do think that the 2 players that I think, in my opinion, that should be kept on the roster for next year are Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid. Those are 2 young core pieces that you cannot afford to lose, particularly Naz Reid, because I can guarantee you right now, if Naz Reid ever becomes a free agent, he's going to be a high-value free agent that a lot of teams that are trying to contend for championships would die to have on their roster, because he's a 6'8", 6'9", center, power forward that can stretch the floor, shoot threes, play with his back to the basket, face up to the basket, and he can be a potential lob threat at the same time. So, having him on the roster is a must for the Minnesota Timberwolves, because you're not going to find another stretch 4, stretch 5 that could do the things that Naz Reid does. Can you imagine if Naz Reid decided to play for the Lakers? The things that LeBron and Luka can do with Naz Reid in the lineup, it would be scary. So, I do believe that Naz Reid is the most important player that you need to keep. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is another player. And the reason is because Mike Conley is going to be 38. I think he's going to be either 37 or 38 by next year. So he's on his last few legs of his career. And so I think it's going to be very, very important for the Timberwolves to figure out what they're going to do at the point guard position. Should they try one of their rookies, like Terrence Shannon from Illinois, to try to fill into that spot? We don't know. But should they try even Dante DiVincenzo at that point guard position? He's not really good at that. He's more or less of a 2 guard that plays more off ball than you would trust him as a decision maker. So that would not be a smart idea on their part. But the question is going to be, if they let Nickeil Alexander-Walker go, who should they pursue as a free agent in that position at the backup point guard position, or find a new starting point guard to replace Mike Conley when he decides to retire. Those are going to be some key questions heading into the offseason. Now, back to Randle. If I'm the Timberwolves right now, I would not be as, in a rush to try to re-sign Julius Randle. Because the reason is because we know that Julius Randle is going to seek, high-value money for his services. I just don't think, based on the production that he gave this year, I just don't think that it would be a wise decision for them to go long-term with Julius Randle. I just don't think it would be wise for them to do so. But if they decide to, they're gonna have to, maneuver some people off the roster to make it work. And I just don't think that the Wolves are gonna be able to make it work. So I think that they're probably their best bet is to let him walk as a free agent, or maybe do a sign and trade and then basically trade him somewhere else. I don't know. But those are the things you got to be looking for, because the Timberwolves right now, their future is kind of bright. Now that the curse of Glenn Taylor is finally out of the picture in this city and to the state of Minnesota, now the Timberwolves can have a brighter future that they can finally invest in with Anthony Edwards. But one thing I always say when it comes to players like Anthony Edwards, you got to continue to show that you're making necessary moves to improve the roster and show that you're willing to win. Because at some point, if this organization screws the pooch on Anthony Edwards, it's only a matter of time before he decides that he demands a trade or that he decides to walk out as a free agent. So there's not much time to waste when it comes to Anthony Edwards. But I do think that you should keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid, and should probably just let Julius Randle walk. I just don't think that they'll be able to afford to keep all those core pieces together. That's just my opinion. I do think that the Timberwolves right now, they're in a good kind of window, but with the Western Conference, how it looks right now, and here's the other dark horse in the race, San Antonio Spurs. If the Spurs, decide to trade that second overall pick to Milwaukee for Giannis, I'm telling y'all better look out. I'm just saying, y'all better look out. But I'm going to save that one for another time. But I do think that the Wolves right now are basically in a decent position. But I do think that those three, players are going to be critical to the destination of how this Timberwolves team is going to look next year. So a lot of questions, man. We're going to find out what they're going to decide to do with all three of those, key players, and then decide which players on the free agency market that they would love to include on their team. So we'll see what happens, man. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And with that, I'm out. Peace.